Well, let's get the latest on this ANC NEC meeting that's underway now, due to receive a final report on the state of readiness for tomorrow's conference. There have also been, well, quite a large number of political developments. If you've been watching, you know what I talk about over the last few days. Also, in the last few hours, the Acting Secretary-General of the ANC, Paul Mashatile, issuing notices of disciplinary action to 5 ANC MPs who voted with opposition parties on Tuesday. And there seems to be a war of words between the ANC in Gauteng and the ANC in the Eastern Cape. We're live now to Govan Whittles at Nazrec. Govan, good afternoon to you. How does it look there? Is everything ready?
Good afternoon, Stephen. Welcome to Nazrec. This is where we'll be based for the next 5 days. And we've thought we'd give you a quick look at how things look at the moment. Just take a look at this. What's interesting immediately is that they certainly intend to keep the journalists as far away as possible from the action. And last time, in 2017, we had these barricaded fences. This time, it appears to be the same thing, except that the NEC meeting will be happening even further away from where the actual journalist studios are set up. We'll try to give you a look of that at the moment. Usually, the ANC has been quite good at trying to avail people for us to speak to when it is time for them to give some information about the conference. But the reason why they're keeping us as far away as possible is, of course, because of the leaks that they anticipate will come from within conference. Now, the leaks relate to a number of things, of course, those closed sessions, but at this point, it's unclear whether that organizational report will be open as it was in 2012 at least, and what kind of information will come out of it. And we know that leading up to this conference, there's been a significant attempt to control the information coming out of ANC meetings. The last NECs plagued by leaks, and this NEC is no different, Stephen. We understand that they've received that report of readiness, as well as a security report anticipating some scuffles, but they do seem to be confident that they have enough security here. At least 600 police officers have been allocated to police this ANC conference. Well, they're not really going to be searching delegates or stopping them from fighting. They're here to be visible and to kind of dissuade people from getting into any sort of scuffles, although there has been a lot of tensions between the different factions leading up to this moment. So behind me is the Newzroom studio. Of course, Stephen, you'll be in there for a number of broadcasts coming from this location at Nazrec, but it's still early days, and of course it kicks off tomorrow.
Looking forward to being in the studio behind you there, Govan. The latest political developments. So we've got, and I think some people will have already seen, you know what WhatsApp's like nowadays, the letter addressed to Dr. Nkosazana Dlamini-Zuma informing her that she faces disciplinary action. What's the latest on all of this?
Since confirmed that the other 5 MPs have voted in support of that independent panel report on Phala, also receiving those letters informing them that they will have to subject themselves to disciplinary action as they had suspected and anticipated. It won't affect them coming to conference. They still appear to be quite confident that they'll be able to lodge some sort of campaign to at least dislodge the president's allies from a number of key positions. Talking here about the Deputy Presidency, possibly the Secretary General and the Treasurer General's position. At the moment, the President seeming to still be consolidated, although the supporters of Nkosazana Dlamini-Zuma seeming emboldened after her decision to openly dissent to the party line. Of course, she disputes that that was the party line. And then another interesting development besides the disciplinary action is what appears to be a war of words between Gauteng and the Eastern Cape ANCs. This is over Oscar Maboyane's comments that electing people from Gauteng, where the ANC has lost control of key metros, would mean that the party would nationally also lose control of governing the country, essentially. But Nyaza Lesufi, the Premier of Gauteng, the chairperson of the ANC, taking exception to that comment, saying he wants the ANC in the Eastern Cape to retract that statement. Paul Mashatile addressing a special Gauteng Provincial General Council saying it's one ANC, we need to be united, coming to this conference. That's going to have an effect on the negotiations towards conference. Remember that Gauteng has said that they're open to being persuaded on a few positions, while the Eastern Cape has pronounced firmly on its candidates. And Gauteng by no means holding a small number of delegates to this conference. I think after the Eastern Cape and Mpumalanga, Limpopo, Gauteng is and KwaZulu-Natal, of course, Gauteng being the next biggest province. So they do have some influence. and what appears to be a tussle between the top leadership will have an impact on how they're persuaded to vote. Last time we saw just how much that small margin could mean at a conference like this, and this time, with those divisions being even more entrenched, it's likely to mean even more.
Govan, I mean, you've been covering conferences like this for 10 years now, probably longer. I mean, you get a sense, perhaps, of an ANC, you tell me, that is maybe just a little more fragile than before any other conference. And I include what happened at Nazrec last year. At least then it seemed there were two very specific factions. How do you assess things this time around?
It does appear even more fragile, particularly with the news that the president had intended to resign and then had to be convinced not to do so. Our sources at Newzroom Afrika saying that while the ministers in his cabinet, barring, of course, Nkosazana Dlamini Zuma and probably Lindiwe Sisulu, appear to still be in his corner, the deputy ministers are hard to read at the moment, and whether or not they'll take their constituencies, which are significant within the ANC, and give that support to the president or to Zweli Mkhize for president is unclear at this point. They're still being lobbied, even at this late stage, Stephen. And the fact of the matter is here that the president and this NEC have presided over the largest amount of disbanded structures since the ANC itself was unbanned. That has been a point that the president's opponents within the ANC have severely criticized him on, but it's also been a point where the president has been able to consolidate some support even from the opposing ranks, because he's roped them into interim provincial committees, interim regional committees, into the interim national youth task team, the interim task teams for the Women's League and for the Veterans League. And that essentially just keeps them in there long enough for them to have to support him until he gets a second term before they can make up their mind. Of course, he'll become even more vulnerable if he is to win that second term. And the question really is not whether or not he's consolidated enough to win it. It's what kind of NEC he'll be left with if he wins, and what that NEC will decide about Phala Phala, and then about the disciplinary hearings of the 5 MPs that openly dissented in Parliament.
Govan Whittles, thank you very much indeed. Our reporter already live at Nazrec for you, showing you what it will be like tomorrow, what will be on your screen tomorrow, also giving you just a taste of some of what may well be intense politics to come.